August is such a lovely month in the garden. There are some beautiful flowers. The late summer perennials are just coming into their own, but it's also very, very hot. There's that first hint of autumn, but if you are going away for your holidays, make sure you have someone to water your plants for you, or you've set up some kind of irrigation system so that everything is alive when you get back. There are lots and lots of jobs that you can be doing though at this time of year. So keep harvesting your vegetables, courgettes, tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, cucumbers. The more you harvest them, the more they will still keep producing. And the same with your flowering plants, especially bedding plants like cosmos and coreopsis. If you keep deadheading them, they will still keep producing more and more flowers. You can also start thinking about taking cuttings, especially for tender plants like fuchsias, penstemons, pelargoniums. If you want to take cuttings now, you have an insurance policy just in case you do lose some of those tender plants over the cold winter. And obviously think about watering everything that's in the garden. If there's a hosepipe ban, obviously don't use that, but preferably use water butts and watering cans and target things that really need it. One really important job that we can all start doing now though is saving and collecting seed to sow again next year as it ripens. And I'm going to do some of that right now. Now is the time when you're going to start noticing all of your flowers turning to seed and ripening. And it's a really good idea to save and collect some of that seed to use again next year. Now, all sorts of plants do this. If you deadhead, obviously you're going to be removing the potential to create seed. So leave some flower heads on to allow them to go to seed. But you'll see things like old bulbs, like this allium, is if you've left them in the beds, you'll see seeds forming. So you can see little clusters of 3 seeds at the end of each flower spike there. And then this dianthus, loads of seed here. You can see the black seeds at the tips there. And underneath there, you'll find them once you start to investigate. A really good seed to try saving is sweet peas because they're pretty easy and they're pretty typical. So you can tell that they have ripened when the pods turn brown. If they're still green, leave them on a little bit longer. And you will find that around now, they want to stop flowering anyway. You can deadhead them and they'll keep going, but there will be a point when they won't keep going. So maybe about now, stop your deadheading and let the seeds form. Now collect these on a dry and warm day, which hopefully we still have plenty of at this time of the year. And if there's dew on the ground, make sure that's dried off before you do the collection. So about lunchtime. And that just keeps seeds dry, which is really important because it helps them to store for longer. So for this, just like a pea, you want to shell the pod. And when you open this up, you'll see that inside it's full of little brown or black sweet pea seeds, just like you'd buy in a packet. Just scrape them out. And this is especially good if you found a variety of anything that you really like. Might be a vegetable or an ornamental, and it's a really nice way of keeping them going. If you have an F1 hybrid, you'll find that it won't necessarily come back the next year as you would expect in some way or other. But if you buy open pollinated seed, that won't be a problem and you can keep reusing it year after year. So there we go. So a little handful there of sweet pea seeds. Just to be on the safe side, I might stick these on some kitchen towel and put them in the windowsill to fully dry out and then put them into a jam jar or an envelope. If you have a little pouch of silica gel, you can stick that in with it just to keep the moisture level down and store that in a cool, dark place until I sow it. And with sweet peas, they're quite good with autumn sowing. So maybe in 2 or 3 months, I might think about starting some and just keeping a few back in case that sowing fails and I can redo them in the spring. But there you go. Easy, saves you money and keeps your seed stocks going. You never know, one of these might grow slightly differently and beautifully and then you've created a whole new variety. And here are some other jobs that you can be doing in August.
That wonderful evergreen that we call box, Boxus sempervirens, has been a staple of the English garden for centuries, from the formal gardens of the 17th century with little clipped curbs of box, right the way through to today and topiary and pillars and columns. And then we started getting problems. Box blight reared its ugly head, a disease which was disfiguring, made them all go brown. And we just thought we'd got to grips with that when about 10 years ago, the box moth started to attack, and its caterpillars eat box foliage, and what a mess they cause. Some of us have stopped going box altogether because it's so disfiguring and we don't like spraying. If you really want to stick with your box plants, there are certain things you can do. For a start, there are these traps, they're like pheromone traps. They give off a kind of aroma which attracts the moths, and they come in here and you fill it with this liquid, special fluid in it to attract them, and they drown in there. I'm sorry, we're going to be talking about death quite a lot in this. And that you can hang up somewhere in your garden to attract the moths. I've done it in my own garden. It attracts some of them, not all of them. So they still come and lay their eggs with this nasty webbing, and the caterpillars it is that do the damage, defoliating your box. You can get sprays, which you can spray on with, a little pump sprayer like this, up and down, all over, to kill those caterpillars. You've got to do it once a week for 3 weeks at the beginning of the season when it starts to attack. So 3 applications, and then it may well reappear later in the season as well. You will be a slave to the sprayer. Now, if you're clever or if you're lucky, you may find you're growing a variety or a strain of box like this one, which doesn't seem to get it nearly as much. Treasure it. Keep on with it and plant more of it and take cuttings of it, because sure as eggs is eggs, if you'll pardon that rather unfortunate pun, one day on softer varieties this will happen and they will be disfigured. Me, I'm just about to replace my box balls with you, because I've tried the other things. It kind of didn't work for me, but you, give it a go. If it works for you, good for you. But I like to think that one day we will see box reappearing in quantity in our gardens. But for now, it's a pretty tough time.
Wisteria, it's a problem, isn't it? Not only how to control its rampant growth, but also how to get it to flower reliably every year. The problem is that it's meant to scramble, it's meant to climb up tall forest trees to get to the light. And in doing so, when you grow it on your house, it just scrambles all over the place. And if you're not careful, you'll get such a big plant that you can't control it and you won't be able to see the flowers. So the key thing is, once you've trained out these soft, vigorous growths to make a framework of your plant, you then need to get into the way of pruning it regularly every year. In fact, not just once a year, twice a year. Once now in the summer, around about July, August is ideal, and again in the autumn after the leaves have fallen off and before it gets too cold to be out there for any length of time. The key to it is to find those long shoots and trace them back. This one's actually grown so vigorously that it's twisted in amongst everything else, and you don't need to untangle it. Just trace that growth back to where it starts from, where it started into growth earlier this year. And then at this time of year in the summer, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buds up from where it started and simply cut at an angle just above that bud there, so that you're at an angle in the same direction that that leaf joint is facing. Cut there, and then this bit, when we've pruned the rest of the plant, will just drop away. Now, the other thing that you can cut off at this time of year are this year's flowers, these long racemes where the flowers are attached. You've got these stalks that, to be honest, don't look particularly attractive, and in a few weeks' time they'll start to go yellow. You may actually find 1 or 2 seed pods on the end of the plant, and it might be tempting to leave those on because you think, oh, I could grow a new wisteria from seed. But let me tell you, you don't want to bother, because even if you do get them to germinate once they've ripened, they take about 10 or 12 years before you'll get any flowers, and it's not even guaranteed that that plant would flower anyway. So it's best to trace those long racemes back up into the plant where they're coming from and just remove those, just to tidy everything up, and discard those as well. But now this is where the fun starts, because I've not only got to prune it down here at ground level, but up there.
If your tomatoes are being a bit slow to ripen, there's a few tricks you can do, and I'm going to show you some of them. So firstly, the lower trusses, as they begin to turn and go a little slightly orangey colour, you can defoliate them. So what you do is you make sure that you use your hand to trace back where the foliage comes from the stem so that you don't cut off any of the flower trusses, and you just take that right out. So what you've done is revealed the truss, and it allows more air and light to get to it. The other thing you can do, maybe towards the end of the season, is to stop the plant. If you stop it by cutting out the tip, not only do you control how much fruit it's going to produce ultimately, but you also divert some of the energy into the trusses themselves. So just look at the top of the plant. So I'm cutting the top right out, leaving a flower truss there that'll develop into fruit later in the season, and taking out the little side shoots at the top. Now that's stopped the plant effectively, and so all the energy goes back into the laterals and helps to ripen the fruit. It gives it the message that enough's enough, all the fruit needs to be ripened now. So towards the end of the season, when you've still got fruit developing and the days are shorter, the nights are colder, and it doesn't ripen very fast at all, before they rot, so when they're nice and clean, you can cut off an entire truss. So this one up here might well have developed so that it's as full as these. You cut off the entire truss and then take it somewhere dry and warm, maybe inside, in a spare room or in the kitchen, if it's not too humid, and you hang them up and they will gradually ripen, so you're picking from the truss later in the season. And then the final tip that you might consider doing is to just take unripened tomatoes and put them with other fruit in the kitchen. So something like a banana in a paper bag. It gives off ethylene as it ripens. Bananas are particularly good at doing that, and that helps to ripen the fruit. But never put your tomatoes in the fridge. You'll slow them right down and they won't ripen at all. If you do all of those things, you defoliate the lower trusses, followed by stopping it when it gets to the top of the cane, and then taking off the unripened trusses and introducing them to a banana, you'll get a good steady supply of fruit right the way through the year.
And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe so that you never miss out on more practical gardening advice.